Hello there. What's going on, everybody? We are back at it with another episode of Double Critical, and today with me is Sean. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good, man. Another fun day.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're doing The Empire Strikes Back. Going kind of like in reverse order from Return of the Jedi.
That's right. We're kind of I don't know. We started doing this movie thing, and some people voted, and Rogue One. I think we did first. We did Rogue One. Yeah, and then it was Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
And then it was mostly tied after that, so I'm like, well, all right, let's just do an order because I don't want to hop all over the place. So
it can get a little confusing, and it makes it simpler too. And Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back really have that war. They kind of have the war in Star Wars more than some of the other films did.
Yeah, I think Return of the Jedi was like the film I said in that episode that I think like Legion was kind of based off of, but Empire Strikes Back is the one I wanted it to be based off of. So we're going to be talking about this today, which is super fun, and I gotta give a quick plug to some of the merch and some of that other stuff because there's
you got it in.
No, I didn't get any of the new stuff. I still have these, but there's new ones out there of the face shields, and there's Ahsoka, there's Boba Fett, there's Darth Vader, possibly more on the way. So so those are still out there. If you're watching on YouTube,
Darth Vader's my favorite.
I think the Ahsoka one's like the fulcrum kind of Ahsoka one looks kind of coolest, but
it's more like a hips or like a gamer chic where it's not like, hey, it looks like, oh yeah, I know that Star Wars is, hey, it's a cool symbol kind of thing.
That one's a little more obscure, I think, too. But yeah, so that's cool. I actually ordered a couple of those, so they're gonna be coming in eventually. But right now everything takes a lot longer to print and ship, and so like I've ordered them 2 weeks ago, they're still printing, so it takes a little while, but. I think that's a lot of factories are working at reduced capacity right now, and so
I know here in Florida I know bars can open up. That's a big thing for a lot of people.
I think they're starting. Yeah, they're starting in a couple of days.
Yeah, at least 50% occupancy is what they're saying.
And once we get to 50%, although it's probably going to be another surge soon. But if we don't get a big surge soon, then maybe we'll get up above 50%. Maybe we'll start gaming in stores again.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I hope we're able to do that safely, but at the same time, I don't want to be foolish, and I've got grandparents I want to see that I don't want to contaminate, and there's all of that. So this has been a very, very tough couple of months for gaming, for tabletop gamers.
It has, I know it's as much as TTS is a cool thing, and we tried it with the Nemesis guy, it still doesn't replace not Nemesis, the CEO of a realm.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace that feel of having the miniatures in your hand, and
it does not. It also being at the table and talking with people and laughing, and there's a lot less of that. And, I mean, TTS is fun. I'll play something on TTS once in a while, but it's not really my thing. It's just it doesn't. Yeah.
And there's a little level of entry of I'm trying to I can flip the cards. That's good. I felt old, almost
there's a learning curve in learning to use the interface, and it becomes a little bit cumbersome at times because all I want to do is just draw 3 cards. Why did I take one? Why did I just flip the deck? Oh no, I just accidentally flipped the table. It's that's why I don't like TTS as much for especially for games like Legion and stuff when there's so many little subtleties. It's just I love playing in person.
No, it is the blast.
Yeah.
Soon, hopefully soon.
Hopefully.
I got my shipping order for Cassian and Vital Assets.
Yeah, I got shipping for everything except the AAT so far. So it's as when more new units to paint is going to be a thing soon.
I think I was telling you, I still can't find Phase 2s anywhere. So
I can't believe that we still don't have Phase 2s in Orlando. I unless you got them online, you just can't find them in stores.
Yeah. No way.
It's bizarre. Everything is bizarre. The whole world is upside. There was an episode of Star Trek Voyager called The Year of Hell, and this is it's a good analogy, for the way
it feels very like Twilight Zone episode kind of thing.
And as people who live in Florida, if you guys don't live in Florida who are listening to this, it's not going to mean much to you, but we are also entering hurricane season.
There's a tropical storm in the Gulf.
Yeah, so whatever doesn't kill us is just to prepare us for the next thing that's coming that's going to be even worse. So it's just, and after that, I think it's going to have to be aliens. I think I'm
going with the super volcano under Yellowstone. That's what I think it's.
Yeah. All right, but let's get on with the show. Let's talk about Empire Strikes Back. So, everybody's favorite movie, right? Not my favorite. My favorite was probably Return of the Jedi.
Mine's Rogue One.
Okay, okay. But Empire Strikes Back is great.
It's
Absolutely great.
it is. It's the one that kind of really gave it made everyone like rewatch the series again and look. It's really good.
Absolutely. I feel like the AT-AT is like the crowning piece that we need to talk about in this thing for Empire Strikes Back, because it's
the epitome of ground warfare.
It's one of the most iconic Star Wars items of all time.
This is me. Popcorn buckets. You got Lego.
You got them everywhere. Yeah. I don't know what just happened, but yeah. So hey, that's okay. But yeah. So yeah. No, the AT-ATs are all over the place. They're amazing. They're one of my favorite things. I've got a giant AT-AT I set up every Christmas out in front of the house.
I trip over it constantly.
I've always thought. Now, I always wanted a ground combat game in the scale, in like a 1/10 scale or something, like, or a 10mm scale or smaller, in the X-wing scale, because X-wing as a game I felt like was the perfect scale to do big ground battles in a 6x3 format, where you could have multiple AT-ATs or AT-ATs,
and it'd be like the epic kind of ships. They would look cool.
Yeah,
I mean.
And you could have had everything in there. Like you would not have had as much of a focus on individual ground troops. So
Yeah.
like you wouldn't be
kind of like Joan of Arc, kind of the little miniature scale.
Yeah,
kind of.
I think they would have been even smaller than that, because if you used to play X-wing a little bit, right?
Yeah, they have a little bit.
So you remember how small an X-wing was? It was only like maybe 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches tops long.
No, it's like
They were small.
2 inches.
Is this 2 inches?
No, that's maybe for you, Tim.
Oh my, family-friendly podcast, Sean.
Yeah. Sorry.
So anyway, but all right. So the point is, the X-wing, the ships in X-wing are small. So a person to fit in the cockpit of those would have been really small, and so like it might even been smaller than a 10mm. It might have been like a 6mm.
Now that you think, because I'm thinking like the actual cockpits and like from like
exactly.
We're painting like the hat, like the hatch for when I did the Poe Dameron one, and that was bad.
I'm still laughing at your joke, man. That's no, but
you give it to me, so you gotta give me credit.
I pretty much set that one up. Yeah, I'm sure the comments are gonna be just going crazy right now. But yes, so I always thought that would have been a perfect scale, especially when we got the Gazanti as as a huge ship in X-wing, and the Gazantis can drop off 2 AT-ATs. Right, we saw it happen in Rebels. So really, an AT-AT is basically the size of like 2 TIE fighters front to back. So it would have been perfect. It would have only been like maybe 4 inches wide. I'm not even going to talk about inches anymore. But it would have only been about
I could see like because like the scale with X-wing, it's I would see it kind of what's like the Decimator. That's one of the bigger ships, right?
Yes,
I could see like it's like the Falcon. Yeah, that's like half this, like long wise, half the size of the Falcon, but still like a good width.
Girth. No. I think an AT-AT in X-wing scale would have been about the size of a snowspeeder, but just not as wide. So it would have been about the length of a snowspeeder base on your tabletop, but a little bit more narrow, kind of a little bit more rectangular. And something like that would have really worked for me for a war game. So when they first announced they were doing a tabletop game, and it was like, oh, it's Legion. Oh, what is this? Oh, let's go. Before we even knew the scale of Legion, I was thinking, well, this is how they're going to do AT-ATs, because we never got AT-ATs in almost any other game. Rebellion is really the only game that has AT-ATs.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Destiny might have had cards for them, but I mean, like miniatures, AT-ATs on your tabletop.
Oh yeah.
So now the difficulty comes to Legion, and how are they going to do this now?
It's because it's going to be huge. I mean, we have the AT-ST, and that's half the size of an. I mean.
About there, yeah, somewhere about.
Yeah, so I mean, to think of how much, like
think
in my
two
mind,
AT-STs,
gonna be.
2 AT-STs kind of front and back with space between them, and then almost triple that height. That's kind of So, and that's just subjective, because it could be a little bigger than that. So there's a lot of different ways they could do it,
and sliding scale and things like that. But to make it, you have to make it bigger than the AT-ST to make it look meaningful on the battlefield.
Right.
And that's a lot of plastic, man.
It is a lot. It's not going to be cheap, that's for sure. Now, it will be cheaper than some other games, because even if they do it really, really big, if you're going to be building it yourself out of a sprue or many sprues, then that's going to cut down costs because it doesn't have to come pre-assembled, doesn't have to come pre-glued or pre-painted. So like I think it would come in at less than like the Super Star Destroyer for Armada.
Oh yeah, I would give it like a.
I think it would be about 100 or 129 or something like that.
Okay.
That's what does the ATST cost? And that's pretty
like
intricate.
$50.
It was about 50, right?
Oh, 50? All right.
Yeah, I think it was about 50. So somewhere around 100, less than 140 is my guess.
Yeah, and like in comparison, I play Games Workshop Warhammer things. Like a thing that's like less than half the size of the ATSC is like $80. So like,
the Games Workshop is. I mean, you really it's hard. I don't want to say you can't compare the two because that's exactly what we're doing is we're comparing the two and citing the differences. But yes, it is a stark contrast between the price of entry for Legion and for Games Workshop games. But Andrew Navarro in his Ask Me Anything early last year, it was over a year ago, I think. It was a long time ago. But he was talking about the AT-AT. There were a lot of questions about it. And he did kind of talk about doing very, very large units that they might come in at like kind of a half scale or a smaller scale. I don't know if it was exactly half, but it was a smaller scale he talked about. And so I think they could definitely do the AT-AT in kind of like that Wizards of the Coast scale. Like the one that I use in a lot of my battle reports.
That's a good scale.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, it looks good.
It looks good enough to me. Absolutely. It's not exactly because, again, I think that's probably about 75% of what it should be. It should be a little bit more than that. Yeah. But at a certain point, I'd rather get it on the battlefield at an affordable cost that people will be able to afford. At least,
exactly.
At least some people will. Like at least one person from every community should be able to have one, so you can at least see it, right?
And then have a community game where 5 of them and be cool.
But
so.
Yeah.
My question with the AT-AT is how for a Legion we have the movement tool and we have our bases. What is the base going to be for this? Is it going to be like per foot or is it going to be like big base?
I've said a long time ago I would have rather it had 4 different feet and each foot have its own base, kind of like an AT-AT base. An ATST base, right?
Okay.
Or maybe you go a little smaller. Maybe you go with a medium base, like an ATRT base for each foot.
Can see that. I mean, because they got skinny legs. They skip leg day for sure.
Right. So, but if you're doing if you're gonna do 4 legs, then you have to make this thing extremely posable, right? Like really, like it's gonna have to have very fluid joints to be able to go in any pose you want. I have a feeling there's just gonna be a lot of machining difficulty to actually get a model that's fully articulatable and also can have all 4 feet on the ground. Because the thing is, if you're gonna make those moves, like what happens if I want to do like a one, but only a partial move? Well, does the leg actually support laying flat against that terrain at that partial move? So.
And then you gotta think that means like every round you technically per 2 rounds is how you would move forward because 1 foot moves. And that's not gonna really go too far for like the head to actually move it. Then you get to the next.
Yeah. So what you would end up having to do, if you did something even at a reduced scale, I think you take a kind of a page out of X-Wing's epic book, and you come up with a special maneuver tool specifically for the AT-AT.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you come up with that just lets the whole base move. But the problem is if you do one base for the whole thing, it's gonna have a big base. Well, even if you do a speed 1 maneuver, even if you do a speed 1 maneuver, right, by Legion rules, now it moves across half the battlefield. So you do kind of like X-Wing or Armada with Epic, where you just slide the whole thing forward like an inch or something like that if it's going to move, and that's if it moves at all, because you could argue that it does not have to move.
You could, and that's the other thing they could make it work with like the scale wise. Hey, this AT-AT is really far away. Therefore, that's why, but it still has the range and capacity to.
Sure, but I would argue that we've already done that with Veers, because Veers' command card is kind of from that. So I'd like to have one on the battlefield. Now, there is always the option. Let me throw this out there before we go into any more mechanics on how the AT-AT would work. There's always the option of them doing an AT-AT playset as just a terrain piece, and it counts as like an objective, and it's a an unmanned AT-AT, right? And that's kind of the objective for the scenario. It comes with like capture, reclaim the abandoned AT-AT. It's at the station for refueling, and at the beginning of turn 5, whoever is on board it can take control.
Someone's played Battlefront.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's a great common sense idea, I think. At least to get a terrain piece on the board.
Yeah,
but
and that way you can crash it too. That makes some really cool sets as well. Like I think why do I always forget what they're called? The qualifiers. One of the qualifiers we went to in Tampa had a crash AT-AT. The Prime, yeah. And that was really cool looking.
It was, and that was actually one of the the Kenner toys, or the old or the Hasbro toys or whatever but the Power of the Force series or something like that. Yeah, no, and those are when they're crashed, they're really really cool too. And the funny thing is, a lot of those old Star Wars toy play sets, those Star Wars vehicles, those Star Wars toys, are not the appropriate scale for those 3 3/4 inch action figures. They're actually in a closer scale for Legion. By a lot of accounts, especially the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon was supposed to fit 4 people comfortably in that cockpit, and you can barely fit Han and Chewie's action figures in there. But if you put the Legion figures in there, like, oh, this is about the size they should have been. So it's like, the proportions are a little off on it. But like, so those things were good sizes for it. Although the AT-AT, I'm not sure. I think the AT-AT was a little bigger than it ought to have been, but that's okay. Yeah. But all right, so back to actually doing the AT-AT in game. I could see it as a vehicle that's stationary. That would easily be a simple way to justify being able to do it, to put it on the ground. Because if it's got a big base, or look, we've already got problems with trying to place terrain in a way that facilitates movement for the new vehicles, right? The AAT, which will ship someday for pre-orders, and the Saber Tank.
Those are huge. Like you've seen the Saber Tank base.
They're monstrous.
Shocked.
Yeah, they're monstrous. And so an AT or an AT-AT is going to be bigger than that. How are you going to have a battlefield with any kind of meaningful terrain that allows an AT-AT to move through it? I think the best way to do it is just
parts of it too. Like I'm thinking, like because we base everything off the front arc. If we do separate feet, does each foot have a different front arc and like?
Oh, yeah. No, it makes sense for it to have a custom base that is stationary. And you can, and since they're doing a custom base, you can print multiple firing arcs on it. It doesn't have to be that just front, left, right. Like you could do an auxiliary, like the Super Star Destroyer and Armada has those auxiliary arcs, and so they could come up with like a special rule set for it. And I think it'd be really fun.
This would be tough game wise, and like maybe it would probably might lead to arguments, but maybe like a tool that like attaches to the AT-AT head that like has like it's like a fan, like it's like a plastic, like a clear plastic. Hey, this is the firing arc, so you kind of like look at the back of the head of the AT and say, hey, I can shoot these in this arc. It's just gonna be tough, like to say, hey, this is in the arc and all that, but it'd be kind of cool.
In keeping with the way they normally do the model stuff, the model would be just that decoration. Everything would be on the base.
Yeah.
So what I would expect is you have your normal front arc printed on the base, kind of like how you do with the Gav tank, right? Like a longer rectangular almost base. And then I'd probably say you have 2 like supplementary or auxiliary left and right arcs that maybe they count as front arc, maybe they don't. And you can do an action to turn the head, and now it can if you do an action, now all of a sudden your head is turned left, you'll have a token, you can flip its left, right? And that means you can now fire out of that auxiliary left arc. Okay. And maybe you can do an action to turn the head right, and now you can, and then you flip the token over. Kind of like how the Droidicas have wheeled mode. And you can have a token that goes on the base that tells you, which direction it's facing.
I like that, because then I think one of the weaknesses of an AT-AT would have to be vision, because it's got a wide butt, so you'd be able to get. I think you can be able to get around it is one way to avoid the upper crushing damage of it, like probably pelting you. So
I would also
nice it allows you to do some customization, and kind of neat.
It'd be kind of cool.
Ion would be really good then.
Which one?
Ion.
Oh,
Ion would be great.
Well, it might even have a keyword that like it requires ion two ion tokens to ionize it or something.
X-Wing does that, right? Where you have to have multiple
for the size. Yeah, for medium ships it takes 2, and for large ships it takes a third ion to ionize stuff. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. And they sometimes do borrow ideas from different games because not exact mechanics, but rough ideas. Because for one, it's the same universe, so some things should certainly carry over. But also, you have a lot of the same people kind of playtesting and giving feedback, even if the chief designer is different. They've all kind of worked on the same. They're all in the same kind of family of developers and stuff. So they talk and they share ideas and they bounce things off of each other. And
like we were real used to the movement tools because of Armada. Like that's something we've been playing with for years.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it could be stationary. Now, if it's stationary, maybe it doesn't have a real big base. Mm-hmm. Or if it does, kind of like the Wizards of the Coast one, maybe it's one that people can move across. Because I would like for people to be able to travel underneath its legs.
Yeah.
And you can't do that now. So that one way to do that would either be a huge base that has special rules that allows people to travel over, or snowspeeders to fly under. Like I want a snowspeeder to be able to fly under its legs, which means you'd have to make it tall enough that a snowspeeder can totally fit, which should be doable. But also, you could consider just doing like a base for the front 2 legs and a base for the rear 2 legs, right? You could do something like that.
Let's have all the important information on the front 2.
Yeah, have all the important information on the front 2. Have the back base be there specifically to give you what constitutes side arc and what constitutes rear arc. Somebody can get into rear arc or something like that. Now, imagine if it's stationary, you're probably not going to hardly ever have anybody in the rear arc because you're going to have to deploy it at a certain thing. But and if it's that big too, it may have to destroy terrain or something like that you place
That'd
it
be
on.
Cool.
Yeah,
maybe don't do like rear or side, like maybe do like underbelly weakness, because that's kind of like what we saw is like its underbelly was weak. So like if you're underneath of it, you do extra damage.
Yeah, you'd have to have Luke have some kind of ability, or force wielding users, or characters with grenades.
And grappling hooks.
And grappling hook. Oh my goodness! Yeah, they could do a climb action or something like that. I'd be really interested to see if they incorporated that entire Luke scene as a way for somebody to do that.
I was going to talk about that too. Like I think another thing for Legion would be an alternate Luke out of like the Hoth sets and all that. Yeah. I think really cool.
Like pilot Luke. Well, I want to see. We saw this definitely in Empire Strikes Back, but there's another thing I want to see. Since we're talking about the ground battle, I want to see pilots. But before I jump into pilots, I want to finish out the discussion about the AT-AT, and let's talk about firepower. Because I think it needs to be at least twice the firepower of the ATST.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, 2 of each color. So maybe 3, maybe 4 of each.
ATST already has 2 of each color, so it'd be 3,
right.
Like 3.
So
4.
I'm thinking 4. Well, the ATST is 2 of each color. So do we go 3 or even 4 of each color? And it really depends on if it's going to have some type of arsenal or barrage. Because I do like barrage.
Yeah, I know that it has like the 2 different guns. It's got like the little like anti-infantry gun and the more heavier gun on the bottom.
Yeah, and
it's definitely the arsenal.
Yeah, I could see it having barrage though, so you could go like, something like that. I'd like that from the main gun, but that would be really strong. So it's a really.
This is going to be expensive as is, so.
It is going to be expensive. So is it really that big of a deal for you to say, okay, well, I want this guy to roll 4 red, 4 black, and 4 white? Perhaps he doesn't have any offensive surge. All right, that seems reasonable.
That seems reasonable.
But if he can attack 2 different targets.
Maybe take out the white, because I think of white as more of like a weaker blaster kind of thing, or I don't know. Maybe that's not true.
White is just less accurate. I think
that's true.
Yeah,
or maybe then again, maybe add more, like for a certain weapon, add more white. For the stronger weapon, add more red or something.
Or maybe he's got less red. I mean, it really depends on his cost. Because if he's going to be the 300-point unit, then you can give him as many dice as you want. But maybe he's got 4 red, 4 black, and 8 white, or something like that, or 6 white, or some kind of. Again, you're getting into really high numbers, so it becomes difficult to see like what crosses over into the absurd. Because while we love to speculate, I don't want things to actually really be absurd. I want things to actually be playable. So,
yeah, and that'd be the stuff like where like, okay, this is like you just have to, your opponent has to resign themselves. I'm going to lose a unit every turn with this on the field.
And another thing you want to do is you don't want the base unit to be 300 points. You don't want it to be that ridiculously expensive to where it's unplayable.
Yeah.
So maybe you just give it a gun that's just 3 of each color, just more expensive than the ATST, and just really good on its own. And maybe barrage comes as an upgrade.
Okay, yeah, that's
maybe
true.
barrage comes as an upgrade, but it's an expense. Maybe it's a 40-point upgrade or a 50-point upgrade or something like that. So you can get a 300-point one, But if people want to just be able to have it and field a thematic army with Darth Vader and snowtroopers and an AT-AT, then maybe they can, right? That'd be crazy expensive, no doubt. But I do think the strength of an AT-AT would probably be a little bit more appropriate for Grand Army battles.
Yeah, and that'd be really cool.
Especially if you can run 2 of them, because let's face it, if FFG is making it, there's got to be a situation where you can run more than one.
Yeah,
just like even with the Superstar Destroyer.
Yeah, Superstar has versions like you can't play this in a normal game.
Well, you can only you can only run it in one in any tournament legal list, but that's only 2 of the versions. There's also 2 more versions that can only be run in extremely high point games that are beyond normal tournament games, and that's fun too. I think every expansion should also have a fun factor to it, so it doesn't always have to be meta tournament competitive.
Exactly, you're absolutely right. We get a lot of times I'm not saying we, but as a community, we get like this has to be performed perfect as a competitive piece. And that's not how things work. You have to have your middle pieces to make the game interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Not everything can be super meta and super competitive. Some things have to be fun. And sometimes it can be a little bit of both. You don't want something to be all of one. You don't want something to be like the perfect unit that always gets taken, but at the same time, you don't want something to be that's only flavor text and complete garbage, right? Yeah. Like if they made Ewoks just trash, where nobody would ever pick them under any circumstances, that would be an epic failure because you want them to show up. When I go to a Prime or even any kind of even semi-competitive event, I still want to see a variety of lists.
I absolutely agree. That's one thing. Like when last time we went, there was a lot of Imperial gun lines. I think.
Yeah, I ran one even, and I normally don't do that, but.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there was one clone player in the whole the whole store.
There was, but that was before we got the first round of clone upgrades.
There was 2 clone players, and there was 1 droid player.
Was it that way? Okay, all right. Yeah. We went to 2 primes, so I don't remember.
Yeah, the second prime. The second prime only had 1 droid player.
That's what it was. Okay, so it's got to be balanced. I think there's a cheaper version that should be over 200 points, but not that much over, and kind of on par with Palpatine. But with a configuration that's begging for you to give it upgrades.
So I know we're talking about other things, but real quick, health and armor. What would you do for the AT?
Well, that's a very good question. Yeah. The armor's too tough for blasters, right? So it's got to have some kind of. It's definitely got to have armor. I think you could potentially give it a red die with defensive surge. But
it makes sense. That'd be so frustrating.
That would be really frustrating with armor, red die, and defensive surge. But if you do that, then maybe you just don't give it as much health because once they were able to penetrate the armor, they blew up quick, right? So maybe it only has 10 health. But
what about this? Would you make some of the idea I want to throw at you? Have multiple health for each leg has a health pool. So if maybe if you destroy a leg, it reduces. Part of it's hey, now it can't, or now it does less damage, things like that. Where that way you can maybe as a player you can focus on weak points of the ATSD or AT.
Well, they have weak points already as a keyword, so if you get on the side. True. But I you suggested earlier weak point as underbelly. Right? Yep. And so that is, I think if part of the attacking miniature's base is underneath, and you can drew. Maybe there's even a silhouette way, or in between the bases, or however they want to do that. If that's the case, then you could get impact 1 or impact 2 even. I think that'd be a viable thing. But yeah, but that's the thing why you should have red die and defensive surge also. You can't be guardianed against because you're a vehicle, so there's really no fixing you. You might even say that it's so big that it can't be repaired. So if there's if there's droids, the droid can't actually repair it.
Yeah, what's R2-D2 or what's that little thing gonna do? No.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's on board, right? But when you're on board, you can't do that. So that might be part of the balancing act of it. Again, we're gonna kind of wrap it up on the AT-AT here because I just wanted that to be a significant portion of this because I do think it's gonna happen at some point. I do think it's going to happen, whether it comes as a terrain piece or a scenario that's not a tournament legal unit or a full-blown tournament legal unit. I think we're going to get it in some form. It's too iconic to not include in the ground game for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I also think we're going to get other big units like that too. And if they do that reduced scale, that'll pave the way for things like the LAT, which would be really big, and other
ATPT or the ATRT
or ATTE.
Oh, ATT. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's one.
Not quite as big, but that one definitely has a place. People are 3D printing those and using those all the time. So
I would love to do a like Rebels version, like with the fishing line and all that kind of stuff.
It'd be epic. It'd be amazing. I think I think that's definitely should happen. All right, so I talked about downed pilots. I definitely want downed pilots, and here's what I think. I'm not going to go into too much about them, but I want downed pilots to be the next core option. For Rebels and or Imperials, just because, and I think it would work for almost every faction. It might be harder to come up with an extra core op like with that for droids.
Yeah, they are the pilot.
Yeah, but not every release has to be fully, equal for every single faction. But it works wonders for the Rebels because we want that orange jumpsuit, right? Yep. We want that. People are 3D printing those as objective tokens or whatever. But
I've seen the one where like the guy's got the suitcase and he's got the gun out. It looks really cool.
It's fantastic. I want those. I want a whole bunch of those. They could be downed pilots. Their ship blew up, or they crashed, or something like that, or whatever for whatever reason. But you see that on the ground. It's the same thing with the snowspeeder pilot that's crashed or whatever. And presumably they're gonna have more core options at some point. But they've kind of, I feel like they're starting to run dry on different recognizable core options, and pilots would be really recognizable.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Empire. I mean, you kind of have that with Inferno Squad, but Inferno Squad's going to have red on their helmets. You need straight black, recognizable TIE fighter pilots on the ground. You know, like I
think the armor's a little different too, just like a little bit, or like the chest plate thing.
Probably, yeah, no, most definitely, but the idea is that they might be more objective hunters as opposed to heavy shooters, right?
What about this? You have it's a very limited number, and if they make it back to your deployment zone, you get a victory point. Like it's like, hey, we made it back from behind enemy lines, kind of thing.
Like that might be, maybe that's an option to use them. Yeah. Like you can deploy them in the enemy deployment zone, and if you do, like then they gain like secret mission or something like that. Like that's a cool option, but I think if they're going to do that, it should be an option because I still want to be able to field them normally. A great way to make them also functionally different would be to give them only 3 units in the core set.
Yeah,
like because there should be fewer because pilots are certainly more rare than grunts, right?
Yeah.
They require more training.
When they crash, like it's going to be one at a time, not like they give them at one, like 5 of them at once.
It might be only 2, but it might be only 3. It might be only 2 units, and then you can maybe but. Since they're core, maybe you can add the personnel and a heavy weapon, maybe. Or maybe they're the first core that doesn't have a heavy weapon option.
It's true. But I can see, though, because like you take the gun off. Like I can see a guy like taking the harpoon thing off the...
That would be, honestly, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I like the idea of them, being maybe just a unit that's kind of thinking outside the box. And like, this is not a standing army's combat force. However, they do usually keep a sidearm, so I would expect them to probably be range 2 tops.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think. I mean,
and also for Republic too, they can get this because I would use those Naboo, the Naboo pilots that were in the docking bay. Qui-Gon Jinn freed all the Naboo pilots. Get to your ships, and they were running on the ground. They were all tied up. From episode 1.
The clones are pilots too. So like,
what's up?
I think the clones have their own pilots too.
Well, they have clone pilots, but those would kind of I guess they could do that. I feel like, but they have the same training, so at a certain point they'd be fundamentally, they wouldn't be that different than clone troopers in general.
That's true.
So I feel like the Naboo pilots, if you're trying to make them like less combat ready, Naboo pilots would be like a weak, and it could be also a cheaper unit. If you're looking for a cheaper core for the Republic, that could be, I don't know, but I'm getting into sub factions and stuff. So sticking with, we see pilots here. I think it'd be a great opportunity to get, especially that orange and white jumpsuit, that classic.
That's why I've seen that sculpt of Luke in the pilot jumpsuit, and that's one of the ones I would absolutely love. It's just it's so cool looking. It's so, and that orange is so iconic. Like if you go to Disney, you see that orange the orange jumpsuits everywhere.
Sure. And speaking of Luke as a pilot, this is a great opportunity to bring out some new upgrades for existing units. We've talked about upgrade card packs before. We did that with War Corgi, but I would love to see a Luke Skywalker pilot card for Luke in his snowspeeder. Or
cool.
Yes, or some type of new gear for the AT-ST, because let's face it, the AT-ST in game is basically designed kind of after the Return of the Jedi AT-ST. But what if those AT-STs on Hoth were configured a little differently? Maybe there's either a different pilot we can get for them, or some new equipment or a new hard point.
Yeah. I just want a flamethrower and AT-ST. It sounds so cool.
I would love. That's a fantastic idea, and actually, that would have made sense because they may have to come down and melt out some ice so that AT-ATs could get through. That's a fantastic idea. Let's make it happen. Maybe a range 2 flamethrower.
Flames for the AT-ST.
I mean, because usually you don't want your AT-ST getting too far ahead.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
It'd be fun. Let's see that. So that's some stuff from the Battle of Hoth. Oh.
I still got 2 things for the Battle of Hoth.
All right, yeah, I was gonna say I've got one more, but go ahead. I'll let you take over.
Well, the first one, actually, I think one of the very first scenes is Imperial probe droids. I think okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'd be a great a scout, like a special forces or
a support. I think they'd be a support.
Yeah, support. Like they're very I don't say not. They have combat capabilities, but like give them really cool spotting abilities. I know, like with War Corgi, we talked about artillery spotters and things like that. Mm-hmm. This is what your Viper droid does. Like it spots for you. It scouts things out. Or maybe you can give like detriments. Like if a Viper droid's near this unit, you get a free aim kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely would have to have self-destruct, so you can move, and it'd be fast too. I think it would be fairly fast, at least speed 2, but maybe consider speed 3 on it. And I would give it the subtype or the unit type, support, but I wouldn't label it a trooper. I would just label it droid.
Yeah.
And it would not be a droid vehicle. It would not be a droid trooper. It would be just droid. So it would not benefit from cards that benefit vehicles.
Okay.
Also would not benefit from cards that benefit droids. That would actually be more of a handicap against it.
Yeah.
But it would also suffer from all the difficulties that droid. Of course, suppression really wouldn't have much of an effect on it. You might even give it no courage value.
Because they were vicious. And I sounds weird saying a droid, but like when I played Force Awakens, there was Viper droids in that. Those they're mean.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense for it to have no courage value, and now Ion is obviously going to affect it, right?
Yep.
And of course it hovers, so it's going to have it's not going to be affected by difficult terrain.
Do with the whole hover rules and all that kind of stuff that's coming out for the stabs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It would hover ground 1 or whatever they want to call it. Yeah, that seems perfect. Probably hover ground 2. It should be able to go up high, but you could give it a variety of weaponry. I mean, we saw them in Imperial Assault. They could self heal a little bit, I think, in that game, but they also could blow up, and they were nasty when they would blow up. I love to see probe droids.
You can say you can also infiltrate them. In a sense, because that's how they appear. They are the forward force and all.
Sure. By chance, is the other unit you were wanting to talk about as some type of creature?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
About the Tauntaun, because we've done that already.
No, I was going to say Wampas.
Yes.
Okay.
I would love a Wampa.
Yeah, no, I don't know how they're going to do creatures, but I definitely want to see creatures come to this game. We talked about the Rancor. We've talked about creatures before. Whenever we get to episode 2, we're obviously going to have, in the prequels, there's lots of creatures in the prequels too. So,
like Nexu is I love Nexu in Imperial Assault because it's a notable model. What's
recognizable?
Thank you. My brain's not recognizable model, and it's going to be a beautiful model too. There's nothing like having a creature on the battlefield that really kind of hey, that's really neat. A neat piece.
I would love to see neutral battlefield creatures that either follow some type of AI or something like that. But I mean, and it could be a battlefield condition. Wampas could show up as a battlefield condition, just like mines.
Oh yeah, so actually, I think I talked a little bit about this one episode. They have the condition tokens, and then if you do an action within range 2 of this,
you spawn a Wampa attack.
Or no, roll a dice, and then if you roll a surge or a hit, spawn a Wampa.
Yeah, and the Wampa spawns on you, engaged in melee, gets a free attack. And then, the only problem is you then have to come up with some type of AI for it. And it could just be that if you do an action within range 1 of the Wampa, you spawn Wampa attack again, he just teleports to you, attacks you, right? So it could be, I think you could treat it as a repeating landmine until somebody either kills him in melee or shoots him from a distance. But I'd say you give him a good amount of health, And you
Oh yeah.
probably put at least 3 Wampas out there, on the board. It'd be fun.
It would be really
Really
fun.
fun.
It would make terrain make it where like you can't avoid them all. Like you have to
Right.
deal with one eventually.
So I will take your creature and raise you and throw out Minox because again if we're progressing in the movie we then get to the asteroid field and of course they land in the belly. Now we're not going to consider that giant space slug because way too big. That'd be your whole battlefield. But Minox are a good size to show up in the game. They're creepy. They could be chewing on the power cable. They could do something nasty against vehicles. They could be very similar. Yeah, I say they could be similar to Wampas, but have some extra effects against vehicles.
I would definitely give them like whatever the animal version of covert ops or covert would be because like they should be small enough that you can't like shoot them right away.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, or they're camouflaged or hidden or something like that. Yeah, no, that's a fun idea. But Wampa's way more recognizable. Minox would be kind of if they were going with creatures as more of a hey, this is a new direction we want to do more creatures. Minox is an option, but Wampas would be a really good first creature.
Yes, that's recognizable. Major movie
and
series.
Rancors too, but Wampas might be the best first creature because it wouldn't be so expensive either.
It's like less plastic.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then of course, all right, we get to Cloud City, which the backdrop behind me now today is Cloud City, or is all of Bespin, and I don't want to talk too much about Lando. We did a whole episode based on Lando already, so. Just know, yes, absolutely, Lando, and more Lando.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link at the end of the video to our episode where we talked about Lando. But definitely Lando. Absolutely has to show up in this game. But you've also got, you've got the Bespin guards.
Yep.
So if they decide to go with new factions or whatever, that'd be a great core unit.
Yeah, I can see a rebellion like sub faction or a rebel sub faction. Yeah, the Bespin guard.
You could, I could see them being a neutral faction because they worked for both sides in that same movie. Both sides in the same movie. But the same thing with, and I think we talked about a lot of this stuff in the Lando episode too, Lobot and also Ugnaughts.
I think, and Imperial Assault did it great, like have an Ugnaught with like its little droid, like it can work with it.
Yeah, Imperial Assault has paved the way for a lot of ideas that are likely to show up here. And in that game, this stuff could go for any faction. Although Lando couldn't, because Lando was still a good guy at heart the whole time. But like the Bespin guards could work for Scum. You could, and there was cards you could play that would bring, stuff from across faction as well.
Yep.
But I would love to see units that don't have a faction affiliation.
It'd be a cool way to augment your army. Like, hey, like these, and it can give you narrative reasons for like, hey, I have these, we hired these guys, or hey, we coerced them because we're on this thing.
Yep.
I know one of the big maps I think from one of the major tournaments was a Bespin board, which it'd be so cool to see.
Oh yeah,
cloud guards. I see cloud cars being like another type of airspeeder. That'd be real neat.
Cloud cards could actually do that. Yeah, they're not that big, and they would totally work. And they work in atmosphere pretty much exclusively. So that's a really good. Also, if we're talking about neutral units, I don't think they're going to go this direction, but we got all the rest of the bounty hunters in this movie.
Right? I totally, like, my brain's skimming. You have Orlam,
Zuckuss, and IG-88. Oh, man. So, here's my question.
All right. Dengar.
IG-88.
Dengar's my favorite.
Dengar is amazing. But I want to talk about IG-88 first and foremost, because there's 4 versions of IG-88.
Yep.
What do you think? Like, here's a problem that we've seen.
You think I say field 4 of them?
Well, maybe they do. Maybe they make, your IG-88 sculpt. Look, they're making the hard sprues now. They're making you can build this unit all these different ways. What say we make IG-88? Maybe more build options than most other units have. More arm sculpts, more head sculpts, more equipment sculpts. Right, so you can have him in maybe 4 or even 6 different poses. Then you give him 4 different unit cards: IG-88 A, B, C, and D. Okay, so now you have your first operative that you're encouraged to buy multiples of, and I would go so far as to say, with IG-88, if you have IG-88 in your list. Or, I'm sorry, if you have 2 IG-88s in your list, you can add more IG. You can continue to add IG-88s, ignoring the rank. So you can have 4 operatives if they're all IG-88.
That would be so. I think it'd be really cool. It could make for a very thematic army.
Yeah, it could, but they would have to have abilities that scaled off of each other. But
definitely cooperation or teamwork or whatever. Yeah, teamwork.
Teamwork with IG-88 is a mandatory. Now, if you do that, if you run 4 IG-88s, you're probably looking at bare bones everything else. Like to fit that, it's probably going to require a generic Imperial officer as your commander, and like 3 naked stormtroopers, and you're done. Something kind of like that. So they should be.
I would say that bad. I would say give it a little bit of flexibility to the core.
Maybe, but like it should be kind of in that ballpark where it's like, maybe if I want to run multiple IG-88s, maybe I only run 2 or 3. Maybe I don't run all 4 because it becomes really expensive at that point. But you also want to be able to run a single IG-88 because like maybe you want to run something thematic, IG and Boba or something like that. And so there should be something in his build that kind of still works, that still makes you want to take him without all the rest.
No, and I'd say a little caveat too, like you said, like if you want 4 IG-88s, your operative, the operative slot, you have to use both operative slots to do that. You can't have like Boba and then 4 IG-88s.
That's what I was gonna say. If you have at least 2 IG-88s, you can add more while ignoring the cost or something like that. That'd be fun.
That would be cool. I mean, that'd be really.
That might be. We have all this problem with like these units. I just did a video the other day about Rebel Trooper breakdown and how like,
I've actually been watching those. They're good.
Thank you. And like how nobody wants to use the ion weapon. Well, if quad IG-88 starts becoming a thing, ion weapons could become really bad. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. It's a rock scissors paper thing. Yeah,
I think too. Like, I mean, I thought with the Clone Wars, ion would be a bigger thing. It still kind of isn't. Mm-hmm. But I think like eventually it's going to become where there's more proliferation of droid troopers, that you're going to have at least a token ion per army. At least one, I think, is going to happen.
It's a definite possibility, especially as more vehicles come out, more droids come out. And if they do errata some of those launch wave ion weapons to be cycle instead of...
Oh, that would be sweet. I would, because I thought that I generally like ion. It is a neat mechanic.
It is. And especially in the Rebel version, because that one's freshest in my head. You're only going to get 1 damage, and then you got to hope that they don't roll a die and block it, because it's only got impact 1. It's only 2 red dice. It's not. You're not gonna. You're not gonna get great results out of that. So, yeah, that's kind of my views on that. But no, IG-88 would be really, really fun.
Yeah,
Dengar.
Dengar would be so cool. I love Dengar.
Dengar would be.
I read all of his books when I was a kid, so it was always fun.
So here's the problem that I'm running into when I think about all these extra bounty hunters. Like IG-88, if they did it that way, that'd be fun or whatever. But you've got already Bosk, and you've got Boba Fett.
Yep. Both
have bounty. They have slightly different play styles, but they both kind of bring bounty to the game as an option. Bosk is primarily your range 4 guy. He's kind of like your sniper, lying in wait, kind of represents a lot of his playstyle, where Boba's playstyle is a little bit more up close and personal, but I have a feeling, right, like Boba's not as popular right now because he doesn't have range 4, but his mobility makes him still viable because he can be an objective guy. He can fly in with the jetpack, pick something up, jump out. Yeah.
He's a scalpel to Boba's hammer. I'm sorry, Boba is a scalpel to Bosk's hammer.
Yeah, sure. Sorry for
fire. Where
Bosk wants to kill people and Boba wants to grab the objective, but both can kill a commander and get that bounty.
Exactly.
I'm running out of like design space ideas.
Oh,
for somebody like Bosk. Or I'm sorry, for somebody like Dengar, Zuckuss, and Forlom. That, like, at least in IG-88 you can be like, oh, well, we're going to run 4. That's the design space, and that's just so unique that could be fun and pretty wild, especially if you have room left over for supports and you put probe droids in there and you do a whole droid army for the Empire. Could be really fun. But but yeah,
you got me thinking now, because the way I see Dengar, he's always been like the he's always got the big rifle, and he's got like the heavy weapons kind of thing going for him. And I kind of like what Imperial Assault did, though, is they made him the status effect. Like, he did more status effects to other troopers. So maybe that's how you run him. He does more debilitating things. I know Boss has poison, but maybe Dengar has more bleeding or like suppression kind of mechanics.
Or gosh, what was that? It's not an exact effect, but we see that in Iden Versio, one of her cards, where if somebody's got a face-up token or whatever, basically he says like this person doesn't get to activate this round.
Oh, hit the shocker thing for the droid.
Yeah, like maybe he's got like a long-range stun grenade, or he's about denial. That could be a thing.
And then Forlom and Zuckuss, I can see them as they're trackers, so maybe they have they can give benefits to scout and or recon and things like that.
And they'd have to be run together.
Yep.
And maybe they're really good at killing enemy commanders, but they both have to be alive to claim the bounty or something like that.
That'd be a neat thing.
Yeah, so it would make them vulnerable. Like they could be a really sharp weapon, but a glass cannon, because you kill one of them, you lose out on the whole bounty aspect. I mean, these are just rough ideas. Again, I don't know if I know Forlom's a droid. I don't know if Zuckuss is not. He's a Gand.
He's a Gand, yes.
And
Gand.
So they're kind of insectoid, right?
I think so. I mean, they can't breathe air. I know that they have to.
The gas. They've got that gas.
They have to breathe the gas. They're kind of like a Plo Koon in a sense.
Yeah.
Plo Koon was insected, but so I think the masks make them look more insectile than they are. But
we're meant to be disposable. Not me. I can't ever do the Plo Koon voice, man. Plo Koon has the coolest voice in all of Star Wars.
I love Plo Koon. I mean, I also love.
I almost bought a Plo Koon mask until I read the reviews of how crappy it was. But Plo Koon is super awesome. He's one of the best. He was actually the guy that found Ahsoka.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, and there's one more person I want to talk about from Empire Strikes Back. And if you're done, I don't really have a whole lot more on the bounty hunters. So
yeah, I'm thinking I got nothing else now that I think about it. Go.
Okay.
Let's see all that. What you got?
Next person I want to talk about from Empire Strikes Back. Help you, I will, yes. Yoda. I want to see Yoda. But
I feel bad that I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We're talking about, because Yoda's not somebody you think about when you think about Legion.
It's true.
At least original trilogy Yoda. People are probably thinking of Clone Wars Yoda. Ninja Furball. Sonic the Hedgehog Yoda. He's kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
No, he absolutely is.
Yeah. But I am thinking that Yoda in this game could be kind of like an R2-D2.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily with secret mission, but not as expensive as you might think. It depends. Maybe they can run him in two different ways. They could run him as powerful master, or I would like to see him almost as like an attachment for somebody. Maybe you can run him what's the guy? I'm drawing a blank right now. C-3PO is what to R2-D2? Counterpart. Thank you. I can see him as running a counterpart to a Force-sensitive unit. Right now, that would only be Luke.
Okay. Yeah, good. That's why you had to restrict, because it'd be really weird to see him with walking around with Han Solo.
No, that would be fun for some games. We can do stuff like that with Rebellion. Sometimes. But no, I would like to see him be as a counterpart for any Rebel unit that has a Force option, which would be Luke right now, and possibly Kanan and Ezra, or even Cal Kestis, or even Ahsoka. Cal Kestis? Is it Cestus or Kestis? I don't know. But you know who I'm talking about. The guy from Jedi Fallen Order, right? So the Rebels still have some Jedi characters available to them in the future, and I'd love to see that show up, hopefully sooner rather than later. And if the rumors about Anakin Skywalker being like the next unit to be revealed for the Clone Wars factions, then hopefully that means we'll also start seeing some more Force users show up for all factions, because it's a great time to bring in grown-up Ahsoka or
absolutely.
Kanan. I mean, we've got Sabine already, so let's get Kanan and Ezra.
Oh, we need the whole Ghost crew. I think they are so.
Oh my gosh, so much. Yeah, I started watching Rebels again. I'm doing a rewatch of Rebels, just because it's great. Even the first season, while it wasn't as good, is still enjoyable. Still really enjoyable.
I just replayed Dragon Age, and Freddie Prinze Jr. is a voice in that. The entire time, like you should be wielding the Force. You're not. It's kind of, I'm hearing them like I'm thinking Kanan the whole time.
I can't train you. We'll find someone else who can do it. You're not focused. You're not disciplined. I love Freddie Prinze Jr. He's great. I want to voice a Jedi. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah,
it'd be really cool. Problem is, I'm not good enough to do that. All right. Anyway, but no, I could see Yoda as being like a two-part. type of unit. Like maybe you can field him as a commander. Maybe he's old and sage. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't even attack. Maybe he's the first unit that has no attack at all, and he's like kind of like how Palpatine.
Didn't they have a short story in the that 40-year celebration thing, like where he destroyed some like Viper droid?
Yeah, he did. He actually, there was some Imperial droid. He was going to expose him to the Empire or something like that.
Yeah.
But I would like to see Yoda like not attack, but give him all kinds of force stuff. Like maybe he can force push people away, but he's got things like pulling the strings, and give him all kinds of actionable abilities. You know,
I guess it.
Yeah, like make him that support commander, and but make him a very powerful, and give him command cards. Give him a command card that does let him attack once per game. Maybe his one pip is just like Yoda's like, all right, I'm putting down the cane, and then he goes crazy, you know. Versus the Clone Wars Yoda, which can be out slicing stuff,
the melee
left and right. Yeah,
I like that. Like maybe like a giant like force bubble push that he is like he does a radius attack.
Yeah.
You know what? I could see him as a low leadership commander. Like I said, make him a true support commander. Make him a low leadership commander. Like where you have to, so that way you have a bubble.
The courage. You mean the courage like 2?
Yeah. Courage of 2. Yeah.
I mean, they do have a lot of courage 2 commanders, and you can't always look at the courage value and say, well, that doesn't exactly apply to this commander, because sometimes that courage value is for game mechanics, not for theme.
Yeah, you know? There's times you have to have the game mechanic trump, because it's not fun.
Well, and also, if you wanted to apply a theme to it, you could easily say, well, Yoda's concerned about the lives of his people, so he's gonna be like, you step back, I will handle this. So like you know, or he did flee to Dagobah, so Yoda did practice self-preservation in Episode 3.
That was after like a crazy acid trip thing of like going around the world and forced places and all that, though.
Yeah, but we only found out about that years and years later. So
yes.
Yeah,
that was like the final few episodes of the old Clone Wars.
That's true. That's true. No, Yoda would be a lot of fun. Yoda would be a really good time. I would love to see that. And I think we touched on a lot. I mean, there's other Imperial officers they could do, like Captain Nita or Piet or Ozzel and things like that. But those guys aren't Veers on the ground. We already have. They could do Veers. They could do a pilot Veers or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I see that AT-AT would be a pilot Veers or some kind of
Veers. I think. Yeah, no, because
was it AT-AT in it, right? Yeah.
Veers was on the AT-AT in Empire Strikes Back, so yeah, it could work. But I think that's about out of it. I think I've run out of stuff to talk about.
I can't think of anything else, especially like a lot of stuff has already come out for it too, like Snowtroopers and Hoth veterans and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well that's I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. Be sure to check out Sean's YouTube channel and his Instagram. I'm gonna put links to those in the description below. And have you been doing any painting or anything lately, or posting any stuff on the Instagram? Or
I haven't done many videos. I've been real bad about that. It's actually a lot. I appreciate what you do, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is. I know you you have that really nice white backdrop now too, so it shows off your Instagram really well too. I don't use Instagram very much, but you've got some really nice looking miniatures on there. So
then been doing a bunch of 40K stuff.
Okay.
And that's really about it. I have a completed Age of Sigmar army.
Didn't you start painting stuff for a new game?
I did. I actually have it back here. I am toying with Infinity.
That was one of the groundwork for Legion too.
Yeah. Because and it's something. It's like they have like a U.S. Army guys, and they have werewolves in it. And I'm like, I can't beat that. I love werewolves, and I love the Ranger class. Like,
nice. Yeah.
It fits right in with what I want. So.
Fun.
I'm actually going to show that there's going to be a picture soon. I'm almost done with one. I got to experiment painting with camo, which is new for me.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank Sean. Thank you for hanging out with me, and thank you guys all for sticking with us. And we will talk to you later.
See y'all.
See ya.